Namaste everyone. My name is Smrithi Adinarayanan and very happy to be part of this Sadvidya curriculum discussion as part of Sanatana Gurukulam's efforts to spread the Indian knowledge systems across the age groups. I'm very happy to meet you all as part of this session. Let us begin with an invocation. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. When we say Purnamada Purnamidam, this entire invocation or Shanti mantra from the Upanishads, it brings the beautiful perspective that nothing is incomplete in this universe for that matter. In every aspect of life, in every life itself, there is a certain completion and fulfillment. But because we experience a certain unfulfillment or dissatisfaction or a certain feeling of incompletion or incomplete feeling, we tend to seek something. It could be wealth, it could be people, it could be anything, so that we feel complete. But in reality, who we are itself is that certain completedness and completion. So the educational process is also very similar. In today's education, some of you may have children of different age groups. You must be carefully observing how the children are going through the educational process in the regular schooling. In order to make the child feel complete, so many subjects, so many activities are practically dumped on the child. When you take a typical, say, a high school student, they have numerous subjects, physics, chemistry, biology, and so many other things. And each dealt with just for 45 minutes in a day. And at the end of the educational process, say, for example, the child goes through until 12th standard, comes to college. At the end of this educational process, many students feel and ask this question: what is the purpose of my life and what has been the purpose of this education system? And that question sets them on, some students handle it positively, but many students go through a lot of depression because of this. Because the education ecosystem has not provided the circumstances or provided a conducive environment for such questions to arise and also get answered. They feel incomplete even after going through so many years of education. But there's nothing to blame with respect to the mass education system because it serves a certain need. We have all been products of such a system. We've graduated, we've gotten a job, or we've been able to take care of our own ventures, effectively communicate, also pursue research and all that. So nothing to complain about it, but there's also, when you look at it deeply, there's so much more that can be done or and there's so much more that can be done differently also. So that is where harnessing the insights that come from Indian knowledge systems has become very crucial at this juncture. Because we did see that during the COVID, even now, we can't say we are out of the COVID period, but nevertheless, during the peak period of COVID, we did see that so many people took to Ayurveda, yoga. At least people I know, they all told me that their pranayama classes were full. All batches were full because people were looking at insights from yoga in order to enhance their immunity, lung capacity, so that they wouldn't, have any issues, health issues in the future. Similarly, Ayurveda, a lot of people looked at Ayurveda very seriously during the period. And even when we are looking at the ecological crisis, many countries are turning to indigenous solutions to solve the ecological crisis. So even if there is an intention to solve these problems, unfortunately, we do not have enough people who are trained in these systems to solve these problems. It's all a patchwork. Most of us have come through the regular education process. Somewhere some awakening happened, and either through the initiation of a guru or through a mentor or through swadhyaya, we've managed to gain access to many of these knowledge systems and putting in our effort to spread these knowledge systems. But if it is not made available in a systematic manner, the next generation will have very less access to this or very less appreciation for such knowledge system. At best, they might call it superstition, like it is happening today. We do notice, we often quote this example. There was a child that came to the ashram. Our ashram, Anaadi Foundation, is located near Palani. A child came to the ashram with his grandparent, and he was accepting of the English date, but called the Tamil date a superstition. Whereas if you practically look at it, the Tamil date is what truly represents what is happening in the in the sky, right? Because it is mapped to planetary positions, it is mapped to the moon, it is mapped to the sun. There is something celestial that is going on at that time representing that particular date. When we look at the Gregorian calendar, it hardly represents that. So many corrections have happened in the Gregorian calendar to be able to adjust it and all that. Many inaccuracies are there. Of course, in the Indian calendar too, there is so much more to be done, but nevertheless, there is a mapping of what is happening in the sky and what we say as the date. So in that case, what happens is that if they are not systematically introduced to these knowledge systems, we will create a generation that is not rooted in the tradition, confused about many things that are happening in the society, and also discourage other people from pursuing such knowledge system and come out without Shraddha in the parampara. And that can be very detrimental for the society. Because if one does not believe in thousands of years of knowledge system, then it is almost like one is left anchorless, right? And hence exposing them to these processes has become very important. So our effort has been to bring out curricular content, co-curricular content, educators programs, parents, teachers, homeschooling parents, children, through various initiatives. One such initiative is this one, where we are going to look at what we call the Sadvidya curriculum, especially at the preschool level. So just to explain the background of why we did this curriculum, we observed that, my husband and I both were college professors. At that time, when we transitioned from the industry to the university, we felt that we really wanted to work at the school level, but we were not equipped enough at that time. So we ended up working in an higher education institution. But then we found that many of the principles of Sanatana Dharma, values, yama, niyama, Daivi Sampatti, all these are best inculcated as early as possible in one's life. The school is, of course, there, but after teenage, it becomes very difficult to mold. So before teenage is a very good period, and up to 8 years is really excellent. And then we observed that we need to go even earlier than this. So we said that because we need to impact at the school, preschool level, because that is where the language is learned. That is where there is a huge memory capacity. And that is where they are trying to make sense of this world. And when the Indic perspective is presented, then they grow up to have a lot more perspective, faith in our systems, and also can progress on this, right? It's not just about faith. It is also about understanding reality through the Indic lens, through the lens of Sanatana Dharma, because that is where we are located, right? Our rishis have handed down this tradition, and it is important for their growth to introduce this. It's not just for pride's sake. It's not just for patriotism's sake. It is for their growth. We see that our knowledge systems are very, very holistic, ensuring the wholesome development of the child. So we felt that we need to bring this at the preschool level itself. Because at the preschool level, practically, if you look at it, we have so many preschool educational processes. We see that most of the children end up learning, rhymes like Baba, Black Sheep, Jack and Jill, and all that. And there's so much confusion. Is this the way to teach this? Should it be ABC? Should it be Abaka and all that? And the child is dumped with so much information right from the age of, say, 1.5, 2 years. And this goes on up to, say, 4 years and 5 years. And most parents and educators, and one thing is, of course, ensuring the holistic development of the child. But most preschools are actually preparatory schools for the schools, the elementary schools. So the admission process of the elementary school is tied to what the child learns in the preschool. So it has become one big industry or a business kind of a thing. You study in a preschool, you'll get admission in a particular school. You get admission in that particular school, you'll get admission in a particular college. And then it looks almost like the child's life is pre-planned. This reminds me of this movie, Truman Show. I'm not sure if you have heard of it or if you have watched it. So it's a Jim Carrey movie where he realizes that his entire life has been sort of fabricated and he's being observed all the time on a camera. So like that, we try to plan the life of a child ever since it is born and try to put all the pieces together, giving very limited scope for the self-development of the child, self-introspection of the child, self-reflection of the child. And hence, creating a holistic curriculum right from the start has become very important. So that is what we will be looking at in today's session. So the idea is I will also pass on the link to download the manual, but I will be showing the manual directly in today's session up to 8 o'clock. And after that, when we assemble after the break, we'll be looking at it. And I will run through the entire curriculum. We'll take a good amount of time. And we will also create breakout sessions for you to sit down, discuss what are the ways by which you feel that you can take this forward. And even if you don't have a preschool child, it's okay. Some of you may not even be married, even that is fine. Even if you're not an educator, if you're not in a preschool, working in a preschool, that's also fine. If you're just interested in education, if you're interested in decolonized education, you feel passionate about doing something, then this is the best way to do it, where you meet people who are thirsting for some such knowledge, like-minded people, and discuss how the various ways by which this can be integrated. So that is the idea of today's session. So what I'll do right now is I will share my screen and we will go through the Sadvidya curriculum step by step. And whenever questions arise, please do, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Don't hesitate to do that. Because when I'm looking at the screen, I may not be able to see all the messages. So the best way is to just probably unmute and then ask the question. Okay. So let's go into the curriculum part of it. So the Sadvidya Educators Manual is a manual that we have created from Anaadi Foundation. A lot of volunteers have pitched in to create this. It's a good 290 pages book, which is available for you to download free of cost. I'll provide the link shortly. And this mainly focuses on the preschool age groups from 3 to 5. But nevertheless, the same content can be used from up to 8 years onwards. Because, many children are new to Sanskritam. Many children are new to many of these activities and Indian knowledge system concepts discussed here. So that way, I would say that this is useful for any age group when you're trying to introduce Indian knowledge systems to young people. And I mean, it's even for an adult, this can be an interesting book to read. We have more books of different levels that I will inform you later on. But nevertheless, let's go through this. So the Sadvidya curriculum book, I think you can see the screen by now. So this book is quite a comprehensive one that provides some introductory notes on why this curriculum is needed, and a brief note on Indic insights on education. Some of you might have attended the session that we spoke about on reimagining Indic education. The other day we had online. So you're in the break or whatever, if you haven't had the chance, you please do watch the previous video. And that way you'll be able to bridge certain gaps in terms of why this kind of an education is needed. To just briefly mention a few points, just 2 to 3 points. India was a flourishing nation contributing to more than 40% of the world's GDP. And we've always heard about numerous travelers trying to locate India. And whether it is Christopher Columbus or any other explorer. And such migration or such exploration would not be needed if India was not a flourishing nation. There have been excellent universities hosting tens of thousands of students, and so many foreign students were part of those educational ecosystems. And Vedas, the Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Yoga, all these were taught in these universities, making it an extremely rich ecosystem. And when we say 40% of the GDP, such contribution to trade and output of the nation will not have been possible without a sound educational ecosystem. Professor Dharampal in his beautiful tree records all this. He says the kind of subjects that were taught, where were they taught, what were the communities that were participating in the educational process, how many schools were there. Even if you see the Bengal province alone had more than 1 lakh schools. But today, what has happened is that we talk about dropouts, we talk about inequity in education, we talk about so many people out of the educational process. Whereas in those times, the educational ecosystem was made available in various forms, not just infrastructure based. They didn't say only if you have, this kind of a building, you are considered to be a school. A Thinnai was a school. The porch of the house was a school. The community, the meeting spaces were schools. Beneath the tree, it was a school. All that was required was an acharya and a few students, and then that would be a school. Women were educated. People of all religions, castes, and communities were educated. So that way, it was a very, very inclusive education process. But we do see that because of systematic colonization, this beautiful tree, the root, the soil was dug and the root was exposed, allowing the tree to perish. And we are still going through this educational process, which is very much colonized. So we would be people, who are, who look Indian, but probably colonized in our thought process, right? So a lot of decolonization, deconstruction, and all this is needed. But nevertheless, not to create any hatred in somebody's mind, not to create any bedha in anybody's mind. The child should grow up with a positive attitude. That is why, one thing is, of course, later on exposing them to the true history. But the true history exposure should be done in a manner that harmonizes them internally. Not, look at, the things without perspective. But at the same time, being firm in their identity of being a Bharatiya, being a responsible citizen of this world, who can contribute to the development of and the progress of the world. So the Sadvidya manual, you have Indic insights on education, some insights on pedagogy, the approach to the pedagogical approach that has been taken is given here. And there is a brief note to the educator in terms of the relevance of this particular book and how to use this book. And then we also draw insights from NEP, NCF. NEP is the new or the National Education Policy. NCF is the National Curricular Framework, which the government has released, keeping in mind the diversity of the learners and beautifully designed, the framework that also brings the Bharatiya perspective, in terms of the Panchakoshiya Vikas and Panchakoshiya Shiksha, but at the same time has its own limitations because it is catering to a diverse set of learners, keeping various, say, religions in mind and all that. But many of us feel that we need to have principles from Sanatana Dharma because we've been exposed to that right from childhood, and our children should also be learning all those things. So expecting the NCF to satisfy that is going to be difficult. Nevertheless, we can use the NCF framework to create our own content and create our own, what you can say, curricular material, which is based on Sanatana Dharma, but at the same time aligns with the larger goals of the national policy and educational policy. So we have a timetable as part of this. In the group discussions and breakout sessions, you will have ample time to sort of discuss this. By then, we will give you the link. The course plan is like, and the log sheets where the teacher can log in which each class what they have written. And then it goes on in a detailed manner into the content. So for age 3, it goes into the content. For age 4, it goes into the content, suggestive timetable, course plan, log sheets, yogic practices, chants, Matrubhasha guidelines, Sanskritam, what can be taught, English, math foundations, integrated sciences in the sense Bharatiya Vijnana or IKS, art and craft, stories, Shramdam, invocations. Again, for age 5, the whole thing repeats. So though this is targeted at age 3, 4, and 5, anybody beginning the journey on Indian knowledge systems, this will be useful. And what is unique about this curricular material is the Panchakosha evaluation report card. So at the end of the booklet, we have what is called the Panchakosha evaluation, which looks at the child from the perspective of the Panchakosha, not just the cognitive development. So it does not say math, physics, chemistry, in the sense English, math, numeracy, literacy skills. Does not just map that, but also maps the holistic growth of a child on various dimensions. Some suggestive lines of evaluation are given. The educator or the parent, they are free to choose this. So one way you can use this manual is, print it and spiral bind it. So when you print it and spiral bind it, it becomes straight away usable. Okay, or you can use the soft copy, whichever you are comfortable with. I'm not going into the introduction. We've already provided that as a part of the previous session. But nevertheless, the purpose of education, when we look at in the Indian context, it is the Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. All actions, whether it is actions for pleasure or whether it is actions for prosperity, when aligned with Dharma, they eventually lead to Moksha. Because we have a clear conscience there, our chitta is clear, we have a peaceful life because it is aligned to Dharma, and because of this clarity of thought process, this clean thinking, a robust body, disease-free body, a mental health-free, mental illness-free mind, and a robust cognition. This paves the way for moksha. So that is why a dharmic education has become very important. So to apply the principles of Sanatana Dharma, the Sadvidya curriculum focuses on Panchakoshiya Vikas. So when we look at a day in the preschool, the entire day is designed to impact all the koshas. Okay, it is a spiral approach. You would see even for a particular topic, for some of the topics at least, what we have done is that like a fractal. The larger goal is also Panchakoshiya Vikas. The day schedule is also Panchakosha development, and some of the curricular components also focus on Panchakosha development. So when we say learning a language, it is not just cognitive development. There are some physical activities through which the child can learn the language. There are some emotion-based activities, prana-based activities. Like that, even within the curriculum itself, there are a lot of Panchakosha based activities. The PDF, I will share the link in a moment. Okay. So insights on education. This is what we discussed about Professor Dharmpal. So what is, I thought I will delve, for a short while on the Panchakosha, because that is important to understand, right? If you can just tell me, how many of you are already exposed to the concept of Panchakosha? Maybe you can raise your hands or something, some way to tell me. Okay, only a few people have raised their hand about Panchakosha. Okay. Yes. So this reminds me of, sorry for the digression, but this reminds me of a joke that we used to tell while we were in school, grade 5 kind of a joke, right? So there was this teacher who came to the class and asked them a question. How many of you know about this? Say, for example, how many of you know about Panchakosha? He was too lazy to teach. Then there were no hands that were raised. He said, none of you know about it. What am I going to teach you? And then he just left the class. And then the student said, okay, let us raise our hands in the next class. At least he will teach us then. Then what happened? He came the next day and asked, how many of you know about the Panchakosha? And then all of them raised their hands. And they said, now that you know it, what is the point of me teaching this again? And then he left the class. Then they all decided some of us will raise the hands and some of us will not. So whenever he teaches, the others will get to listen. And he came to the class and asked, how many of you know Panchakosha? 50% raised their hands. He said, now that you people know it, why don't you teach the others what is the Panchakosha all about? So that is what we are going to do in the breakout session. Whoever raise their hands, they can please enlighten the others on what the Panchakosha is. Okay. On a lighter side. But nevertheless, when we say kosha, kosha is literally it is translating as a sheath or a layer or a covering. Okay, but it is also the components of the body that cover the Atma. We've all taken birth in order to fulfill a certain purpose for which we have taken a body, a mind, a cognitive dimension, this sthula sharira, the gross body, or the sukshma sharira, the subtle body, and the karana sharira, the cause of which we exist. Okay, and the koshas are layers that cover the Atman. That's the way to look at it. So what are the kosha? Pancha is 5, kosha is the cover. And this all living systems have this, where it's a tree, human, cow, or all the humans have this. So the 5 koshas are Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya kosha. So Annamaya kosha is the physical structures, okay, that grows and nourished because of food. For example, in Tattva Bodha, it is mentioned, Annarasenaiva bhutva, Annarasenaiva vriddhim prapya, Annarupa prithivyam yad viliyate, tad Annamaya koshaha. So whatever grows and sustains and goes back to the earth, that is the Annamaya kosha, which is nothing but our physical structure. It's the same for the tree. It is the same for the human body. The tree, the leaves, the bark, the trunk, the seeds, everything goes back to the soil, right? So that is the Annamaya kosha. The Pranamaya kosha includes the various, the Pancha Prana, Prana, Apana, Vyana, Samana, Udana, and the Karmendriya, or the faculties of action. Okay, this is a very important aspect to understand. How do we act, right? What are the various actions? If you see, typically the Shastras talk about 5 actions. One is speech, one is, speech, movement, grasping things, excretion, and reproduction. These are typically the actions. And how are we able to perform these actions? You have motor nerves, you have an entire signaling mechanism from the brain. And when the signals pass through the channels, we are able to move and act in this world, right? So the signaling mechanism is also included in the prana. One is, of course, the prana being the breath that is there, but the prana is also these these subtle energy systems that power this entire body. That is why we say when the prana leaves, the person becomes a dead body practically, because the prana is not there to energize and move this particular system. So you have the Pancha Prana, Prana, Apana, Samana, Vyana, Udana. It is very important to know this framework. At least in this, you go through the NEP, NCF, detailed, it is mentioned the koshas. In this document also, we have mentioned as much as possible. There are some diagrams which will highlight that, which will sort of clearly give you a picture. So this framework is important to understand, because when you nurture a child, you can practically look at these dimensions. Because when we design an education system, we might be overly focusing on one dimension, could be stories, right? Many, or play for that matter. There could be so much play that is happening, but very little exercise that is given to the memory. Because if you see, people say that by 8 years, the child is capable of learning 8 languages. The power of the Indian system has been to harness the power of memory, not just rote learning. People confuse memory and rote learning. Rote learning is just by hearting an English statement, right? Why do you need to, when you by heart, the prana is responsible for various faculties of action like speech, grasping, that is called rote learning without understanding. But when you capture it in memory, for lifelong, you actually remember it. You would see it in your own lives, that whatever you learned as a child, maybe you learned few verses of Bhagavad Gita, till now you remember that so well, because at a very young age, this has been impressioned. So this Pancha Prana, Prana, Apana, Samana, Vyana, and Udana, they take care of different aspects of the body. Prana takes care of the inward breath, Apana is the downward breath, Samana is the digestion, Vyana is the circulation, Udana is the speech and memory and thinking process and all that. So that way, all these, pranas become important for the child to function normally and in a healthy manner. So the ecosystem should be designed to cultivate these aspects. Manomaya Kosha is the mind together with the senses. Senses include visual senses, auditory senses, tactile senses, gustatory senses, and olfactory senses. Then they realized using these organs, eyes, ear, nose, tongue, and skin, right? And together with the mind. That is how we participate in this reality. We take in things through our senses, and we take in things through our senses, and we participate and make sense of reality. And what does the mind do? It attaches certain emotions to it. We like certain circumstances. We don't like certain circumstances. We feel happy in looking at something. We don't feel happy looking at something. We feel happy tasting something. We don't feel happy tasting some other things, right? Like, for example, neem. Children don't like neem. They don't like Karela. Many adults themselves don't like many of this. That is why, one reason why Western medicine has also taken over, because it's so easy to just pop a pill compared to having a kashayam, which is so bitter, because we are driven by these senses and we attach certain emotion to these senses. So that when we say Manomaya Kosha, the mind is participating as we make sense of this reality. When the mind participates, there are also a lot of emotions associated with this. Some of these emotions can be happy, some of these can be sad, some of these can be, it could even be anger, right? When we are angry, what we take in through the senses will be very different after we calm down. So that way, the Manomaya Kosha plays a very crucial role, and providing the child with, a happy and learning environment becomes very important. Otherwise, what happens when children are bombarded with information, expected to perform, put a lot of pressure on, saying that, only when you learn this, you will have a bright future. All these statements can actually put a lot of pressure on the child, because the child has no context to imagine about the future, right? For them, today, now is what is happening. We all talk about being in the present. We all talk about the power of now, power of being in the present, and all that. The children are actually already embodiments of that. If we just understand that, we will just allow that situation to be. We will just provide them a happy environment to be, where they will just focus on today's learning and not worry about how this learning is going to make them a doctor or an engineer or even a Veda Pandita for that matter. All that matters to the child is whether the child is having a good experience coming to school today, or being at home today, or going through this educational content today. What happens in the future is only the parents or the educators worry. The Vijnanamaya Kosha is the same senses, but it is combined with the intellect. Okay. It is combined with the intellect in the sense, because when we look at, say, you're looking at something in front of you. It could be a water bottle, or it could be the laptop or the computer. The moment you look at it, you actually understand that this is a laptop, that a label arises in your mind because of your intellect, because of the body of knowledge that you have, isn't it? Say, for example, I present to you a completely new object. You won't be able to recognize that. You might say, this looks like a mobile phone. It looks like something, right? But then you may not have full knowledge of it. For example, my second son, when he was very young, at that time, all of them had, touchscreen phones around them. Then there was one person who came home who had a button phone. So when they showed this phone to my second son, he was about 2 years of age. He told that this is an AC remote. Okay, he said this is an AC remote. So for the child, they have not seen the button phone. So they do a comparison with what they already know. He knew an AC remote. So he mapped it to an AC remote. So that a priori knowledge is needed for you to make sense of this reality. And if that knowledge is not there, you provide a right content, and then you form the mental model of it. So this Vijnanamaya Kosha is a very crucial aspect of growth. But what happens is that overly focusing on the Vijnanamaya Kosha has produced a lot of children who are like extremely brainy, fine and all that, but have no self-awareness about their own body, their own mind, their own energy structures and all that. Not self-aware in the sense, not through a language, but just becoming aware of that. So you would see that very tiny kids talking like adults because the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the logic and analysis and everything has been provided to them. But simple foundation of observing when they are feeling hungry, when their stomach is aching, what has been the reason for their sickness, all that they don't have a mapping about. Okay, and hence a balanced Vijnanamaya Kosha is very crucial. That is why introducing them to yogic practices, simple yogic practices. Each system has different requirements. Some systems start very early on. Some systems start a little later. That is, I leave it that to you, depending on the system that you belong to. But nevertheless, simple, fun-based yogic exercises, even though they might just look like you can say any kind of an exercise. Those really help because they ensure that the hormones grow in tandem with the growth of the brain as well, so that the child does not lose the childlike approach to life. A child can remain a child without bothering too much about what the kind of content that adults are exposed to, or the worldview of the adults. They will remain children because their body and the mind will grow parallelly or together in synchrony. Okay. The Anandamaya Kosha is the spiritual dimension where there is a lot of satisfaction, happiness, spiritually experiencing things, a certain calmness, and a certain sattvic approach to life, not aggression. Okay. So when we look at the Panchakoshiya Shiksha, it talks about all these dimensions. So here, if you see this diagram, you will get a better idea. I'll give you a moment to look at this diagram. When we say Annamaya Kosha, it is to do with the physical well-being. Pranamaya Kosha, energy quotient or the vital dimension. Manomaya Kosha, emotional quotient. Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intelligence and aptitude. And the cognitive executive functions. The Anandamaya Kosha is to do with the spiritual quotient in a child. So preschool educators can practically design a lot of activities and intervention to ensure the development of all these koshas. The activities can be integrated with learning components themselves and also designed exclusively to each kosha. That can also be done. Simple things like movement of the tongue, repeating the sound with various breath patterns, chandas for that matter, singing a song with a sound, with actions. All these are ways of learning a particular concept. The preschool daily schedule can also include the development of all the koshas. We recommend that all of these approaches can be experimented with. Here are some developmental aspects that exclusively focus on the Panchakoshas. This is what we are going to look at. And the way the Sadvidya manual is designed, when I was exploring various preschools, how they function, there is typically, a franchisee model where there is a central place where curriculum is designed and all that. And then teacher training is provided, and each locality has a particular preschool that follows that curriculum. There are excellent preschools and models which prepare the child in a holistic manner, definitely. But there are also, what I heard is that there are some preschools where the content for every day is so micromanaged that every bit of the schedule is given to the teacher, and this is what they need to teach. I had a couple of friends who also were teachers in preschools. They all mentioned that practically they don't have to prepare anything. They don't have to think out of the box because everything is told to them. Everything is given. Okay, you teach this today. Okay. So that is not the approach that we have taken in this book. At the same time, there is enough guidance also given. 200 days of content for every subject component for every year is available in this manual. But at the same time, there is so much scope for the teacher to self-explore, to bring out their own unique flavor and also do that. So if at all you want a guideline to just go and take it, that is also available. But if you want to experiment with it, first imbibe the whole thing, then offer it, even there is scope to do that. So that is how this manual is designed. Of course, there is so much more that can be done for this manual itself, or enhancing what this is just the beginning, I would say. So in fact, the idea of having this session is also to be able to pave the way. RTG Sanatana Gurukulam will then probably highlight what we are going to do as well for the future sessions. So your participation, you're going through this manual or bringing in your own wisdom to the table will become very important. So this is just the beginning of the journey of this preschool education. That is what I would say. And as a foundation, as together working with Sanatana Gurukulam, we are very keen to see how can we be of seva to people who have interest in starting a preschool or who are interested in homeschooling their child based on such curricular material. Okay. And this is not the this is one, nobody can say this is the last word on this is how a preschool should be conducted. There is so much in our tradition that infinite, you can run it for infinite number of days. You can just be in a preschool and get enlightened. That is how I look at the frameworks from Sanatana Dharma. Okay. And so the Annamaya Kosha, if you see, proper growth of all parts of the body, whether the child has good height, weight, age-appropriate food consumption, ability to walk, jump, run, a sattvic diet, which is based on whatever faith system you are a part of, Ayurveda, Siddha, Yoga, Naturopathy, and daily yogasana routine, playtime that utilizes diverse muscles and parts, and introduction of foods that cover all the rasas, Madhura, Lavana, Tikta, Kashaya, and all those tastes, right? Over a period of time, introducing the child to all this. When we say Pranamaya Kosha, we look at the proper functioning of the various faculties of action. Speech, grasping things, moving, then excretion, ability to maintain the energy throughout the day. We've seen many children, after an hour or so, they lose energy. But when you probe further, you would see that they've actually slept very late. In many families, I've seen 9 o'clock in the night or 9:30 in the night is when they start having a discussion on what can be the dinner for tonight. So what happens practically? A preschool child, even if they are just 3 years of age or 4 years of age, they tend to stay awake till 10:30, 11. Then waking up early becomes difficult. And if they are forced to wake up early, then they're very cranky that day. And what happens is that their participation in the education also becomes very difficult. So that is why following a simple dinacharya of sleeping early and waking up early and not overloading the stomach, just providing enough food that the child needs becomes very important. So all these, as a homeschooling parent or as a parent of a preschool growing child or as an educator, become very important. So when we say a preschool educator, that is why the Sadvidya is very different. It's not just to do with the cognitive dimension. It's not about how many nursery rhymes or how many Tirukurals you have taught the child. It's about how well you have observed the child and being part of the growth of the child. Okay. So the lung capacity, you might think that, oh, this is a lot of responsibility. No, that is where all of us are here to guide, take this together and experiment with many of these things. Lung capacity, nature, volume of the voice. Many children, if you see, they will be having a feeble voice because of low prana. So once the pranayama practices or chanting, singing, all these are given, then the prana flows and then they tend to have a better volume of the voice. Breathing patterns, proper digestion, respiration, circulation, all these are part of taking care of the pranamaya kosha. Designing a daily chanting activity, pranayama, and climbing, jumping, running to increase their lung capacity. We have typically seen that many children are not able to jump. And you might be wondering, my preschool is just so many square feet. Where will I have the scope to jump? No, with just a simple skipping rope and a few feet, you can actually practice, train the child to jump. I remember when our children, we have two sons. The elder one is 17 years old. The younger one is 9 years old. And we've practically seen right from they were about 3 years of age or whatever. We used to help them practice jumping. And the second important thing we used to practice was catching things. You throw an object at them and then the eye and hand coordination should be perfect. So they should be able to catch it and throw it to you. They should be able to aim and throw it at you. Okay, the ball or whatever it is. Not an object, of course, a soft ball. And climbing. Also, we used to train them to climb different things without fear. Right, climbing up a chair, simple things. In a preschool, you also need to ensure safety, but at the same time, also encourage them to do this because this builds a certain capability. So probably, for example, if you arrange a few bricks, okay, one in a line, the child should walk on those bricks without stepping on the floor. All these actually bring a lot of balance. These might look like simple, trivial activities, but they have ensured, at least in my own children, I've seen that this has ensured that they actually grow up fearless of surfaces. They're comfortable with all terrains. They even climb the Himalayas without fear. They climb a tree without fear. And at the same time, they know which space is safe for them to walk, where they might fall. So that intelligence also has been built into. So the pranam, bringing these activities become very important. It might look like I'm just saying what you already know, but consciously bringing them is important because it reinforces that thought process. Manomaya kosha is to do with the visual, auditory, the various senses together with the mind. So observing whether the jnanendriya, all these are working properly, whether are they paying attention, are they in a general state of happiness, do they have mood swings, how do they connect with the other students, and how do they connect with other beings like birds, animals, plants, and designing activities to interact with birds, animal, plants, working with the soil, cultivating qualities like humility, humor, compassion, seva bhava. All opportunities should be given to children. For example, every day you can take a small routine, right? One child will serve the others. Suppose you're serving, say, cut fruits. Let all the children sit down and one child will take the responsibility of serving the other children. Just 2 pieces of fruits. That brings a certain seva bhava. Okay. Or for example, that child takes care of arranging the things of all the other children. So that they don't map it like it's only my thing, and that's the only thing I will take care of. This can be, they will take care of all the things of all the children. So that tomorrow, if a child loses something, or is not in a happy mood, the other children will pitch in and then be able to help this. So cultivating vinayam or humility becomes very important. Humor is very important. Give lot of opportunities for them to laugh, okay, and compassion, seva bhava. So how do you inculcate compassion? Telling, showing them a plant, taking them to a goshala, or showing videos of cows, animals, whichever is available. When I say preschool, I do understand it might be located in a city, in a building or an apartment where there is very low scope to introduce about many of the animals and birds, but nevertheless you can organize field trips, or whatever is there in the immediate environment, you can introduce them, or even have plants, simple plants within the preschool itself. So at least we are able to show them. Okay. The Vijnanamaya Kosha is about proper cognitive development. It talks about attention, focus, memory, ability to categorize and choose things. We have a lot of activities for that. Ability to process sensory input, understand images, sounds, texture, smell, taste, ability to learn, retain in memory. That is a very important thing. What happens is that this is one easy way. There'll be so many children who, even after numerous repeated, chanting or whatever, they won't be able to retain in their memory. So for them, some more repetition, compassion, all that will be required, and probably make it interesting. Many children just learn it. Some children will also make it, you'll have to make it interesting for them to remember. There will be different kinds of children. So according to that, you'll have to slightly model that. You don't need to worry about super, what you can say, personalized education. You don't need to worry about that. Once this framework you start using, automatically many of the things will become personalized. At the same time, there will be some common elements as well. Pay attention to the class, grasp whatever is taught, ability to see, write, hear, and say. All these are part of the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Designing learning content relevant to all senses, chanting-based memory activities, solving various puzzles, reading and writing, memory and classification games. All these enhance the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So people who are already preschool educating the children can now relate to it, because all the activities that you already do have now been put into the koshas. Okay, just that you will notice that in the preschool design that is currently there available in schools, it can be imbalanced. There can be over focus on certain dimensions and little or no focus on certain other dimensions. So that is what this curriculum is about, to integrate what is missing there. And it's not about replacing the whole thing. If you want to replace, yes, go ahead, do that. But if you're already doing many of the things, you just have to bring the perspective of the Panchakosha and look at it in a holistic manner. Anandamaya, general state of happiness and value systems, showcasing spiritual qualities of devotion, calmness, interconnectedness, joy, ability to handle diverse situations. Simple worship routine, meditation routine, cultivating devotion, all this can be done. I've seen that children find it very difficult to just close their eyes and sit. So even open eye meditation, just being quiet and silent for a few minutes in a day. No need of a big target. And this is also an opportunity for you to sit with them and then engage in, say, a puja or a meditation or whatever it is. Okay. So these are some of the activities that are part of these various koshas. I'll pause here for some questions. And again, we'll come back to this. If you have any questions, please do ask. With respect to the koshas. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll proceed.
Namaste.
Namaste.
This is Ravi Shankar. See, I'm not an educator. Actually, I'm an IT professional, so I don't know much about education, more so with respect to children. But I have a question here with respect to assessment of the children. So it is not that all are of the same swabhava, right? At the age of 3 or whatever, when you start the child uh, for this type of education or any type of education for that matter. So what is the swabhava and how you assess that? Should it not be part of the curriculum to start with?
What we do is that the evaluation sheet is given. If you feel that at the Gurukulam here where we have, when the child comes in itself, though we don't fill the evaluation sheet, we actually look at some of these parameters, even including
Okay.
say Ayurvedic Prakriti and all that. Even that can be done right at the start, and then looking at it. So, but what we have typically seen that the preschool should be able to handle that
Okay.
diversity. Otherwise, at least having some common minimum curriculum and then going, maybe after 20 days or after a month, every month, this assessment can be done. There is an evaluation sheet at the end. You can even use it at the beginning, then give, teach them something, and then again use the evaluation sheet. It can be a longitudinal recording of the evaluation also. That is also fine. That is why what we've done is that in evaluation, we have not given grades or anything. We have divided into three stages of the growth of Krishna. Let me just show you, now that you have asked this question. Let me just show you the sheet. It might be useful at this stage. Okay. So this Panchakosha evaluation sheet, if you see, it is, for example, in the Annamaya Kosha, some parameters we have written here according to your interest in whatever you are able to capture, you can, this you can do. So here, if you see the 3 levels of grading we have provided, Mathura, Vrindavana and Dwaraka. So if a child is very at the beginner level with respect to a certain quality, you put the grade as M. If the child is sort of medium with respect to that particular capability or skill or that particular parameter, you put V, Vrindavan. And if the child is quite mature in that, it is called Dwaraka. So that way, some children will be, Mathura in certain aspects, or some children will be Dwaraka in most of the aspects. So depending on that, you can enhance your intervention accordingly, look at the child and probably include dimensions which are missing. Say, for example, the child's ability to jump is not so good. Maybe you can provide more opportunities for the child to jump and learn that skill as well. I'm not saying jumping is the only skill, but some feel that even the sports skill is important, or the physical, is equal. Whoever feels that way probably can do such interventions. So
Okay.
yeah, it's like this for
Thank
each of the koshas. There is a particular thing which you can capture right at the beginning.
Okay. Thank you.
Namaskara. I also have something to ask.
Yes.
This is Netra here. So I might be jumping the gun, and we also have another session. So I just wanted to check, will you also be helping parents understand how to incorporate all of this for children
Yes.
who go to conventional schools today, who are part
Yes.
of a very regular setup?
Yes.
Okay, so
The
that will be happening.
entire
Okay, great.
content we will be discussing. The entire content of this manual we will be discussing. And you would see that even if the child is going to a regular school, anyway, the remaining part of the day is available. So the whole thing can be integrated to them. Or if you feel that there are 10 other children in your apartment or neighboring area who are interested in learning and you are interested in teaching, after school, you can bring them together. Say, for example, 3:30 to 5:30 in the evening. You can bring them together and then offer this curriculum content. That can also be done. Or for your own children, or whatever. Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
This content can be used in it. This is not just, as I told you, it's not just for people who run a preschool. This is for people who might have a preschool child, or who are interested, who may not be married, but just interested in organizing children and teaching them, or just learning, the Indic concepts. For all of them, this is relevant.
Is this manual available?
Yeah, this is available. Towards the end of this session, I'll give it to you so that you will be slightly prepared for the next session. Yeah, to around 8 o'clock, I will just pass on the link.
Ma'am, one quick question. So, parents who have not gone through this kind of education, but if they are inclined to put their kids into this kind of education. So the mindset is something which is very important for the parents, as well as because when kids start studying in such schools, right? Parents, there will be a lot of questions being asked to the parents. Now, we may not have gone through that sort of education, right? In that case, how to prepare and how do we expose ourselves to and juggle into two different kind of educational systems? In the sense, you understood my point, right? We
Yes,
may
yes,
have
yes, I
grown,
understand.
yeah,
Because we run a
because
Gurukulam and typically we have parents who are very convinced, but then they have to convince the larger ecosystem also why they have put their child in Gurukulam. So
no.
totally understand. I can relate with your question. Yeah.
What my question
Yes.
was, in the sense, how parents should make up their mind and start, what do you call it, practicing in their mind that uh, how do I adopt to this kind of education where my kid is studying, because ultimately kid will have to depend on parents also while studying this curriculum, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in that case,
I
how
would
is
strongly
it?
recommend. Yeah.
Hmm. Go ahead,
So I
please.
would definitely recommend that. I would definitely recommend that personally you go through this manual. You, in the sense, whoever has this kind of an interest, go through this manual. That is one thing. Second thing is that systematically exposing yourself to some of these knowledge systems becomes very important. So a good starting point, of course, is reading The Beautiful Tree by Professor Dharampal. At least the first portion of it gives a good overview of the educational system that was there in ancient times. That is one thing. Second thing is the Educational Heritage of India. That is also a book, I think, by Dr. Sahana Singh. That is also there. That is about the larger education, and also enrolling for some courses or talking to people who are into the Indian knowledge system can really help. For example, attending a simple course on Ayurveda just to get the terminologies right. We also have some books, produce some books which will be interesting for older children, but also parents for that matter. All those links I will provide, and also attending online courses on them. So here all these become useful. The book names, beautiful read, and I think it's called Educational Heritage of India.
Okay, ma'am. So this predominantly, this kind of
Yeah.
primary education is predominantly being given in which part of India? Tamil Nadu or Bangalore?
This kind of, sorry.
Ma'am, where is this being given? If I want to enroll my child.
No, okay, this see, actually the preschools have to be created. That's what the whole effort here is, to also bring together like-minded people and explore the possibilities of having one in Bangalore. Maybe RTG, maybe this is a good time to.
Yeah, I was just thinking if I can just pitch in. We do the Sanatana Gurukulam. One of the aims is to take. We already do have some sessions for children from a young age across all age groups to take this kind of knowledge, and that's why we have an. Smrithi ji coming here to guide us and be able to take it to more and more people in whatever ways we can, because we believe it should be, more and more children should benefit from this knowledge system and have this kind of holistic learning. But Sanatana Gurukulam does address this issue. We have evening sessions for children, where those children who go to mainstream schools, regular schools, but want to be with the Indian knowledge systems, and parents don't have that much knowledge. We have sessions in the evening across age groups, starting from till 6 years, from 2.5 to 6 to then we have 6 to 9 to 9 to 14. We have and then we have programs for youth and everything, and also for adults, because this is an ecosystem. So that when along with the children, the parents, the whole ecosystem, the Sanatana Gurukulam's aim is to plug the whole ecosystem. So parents also can equip themselves and can learn through this journey. So we have programs for the parents as well. parents and other individuals, all individuals, because the whole ecosystem has to develop together. So we have a various programs. So you can contact us later if you want to. Thank you, Smrithi.
Will you be developing worksheets for this?
Yeah, that is also one of our endeavors, is that the manual as such gives very clear-cut guidelines for the educator, but the effort of these sessions is also to have 3-4 volunteers who can probably create.
Like in India, we have 6 days, while in the basically sometimes. So
if I can just interrupt here. We will, how to take this forward questions, we'll probably address it at the end. If anybody has any doubts regarding the Panchakosha philosophy itself, which Smrithi Matrushree has just shared, I think we will take questions on the subject right now. But we are going to address this point of how it can be taken forward. We do have some thoughts on it. So towards the end of the session, we will definitely have devoted time to discuss that. Is that, yeah.
Just take a minute to get the publication link here. Just give me a minute. I'm just trying to access the link. Yeah. So in this particular link that I have shared in the chat box, you will find the link to download the Sadvidya curriculum teacher's manual. Okay. Just because it's free of cost, it's just you can add to cart and download the book. So what I'll do right now is I will again go through the Panchakosha model to just, sort of consolidate the understanding.
This is a beautiful curriculum, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll be more than happy when more and more people take it up, engage with their children, create schools out of it. We are very keen that preschools should be set up. I mean, I won't say just based on this curriculum, but with an Indic flavor, where this can also be part of that, so that our children's future is secure.
Actually, in the yoga system, you have what do you call it, different yoga postures and pranayama postures.
Yeah.
So when we perform those yogic postures and pranayama postures, ultimately it is impacting the Panchakoshas.
Very true.
So this curriculum, if it is directly based on that Panchakoshas, it's marvelous. Like it's just that people have to follow. In the sense, if they have been taught that eating vegetarian food, eating plant-based food is healthy, it is going to improve your health. That is a bookish knowledge. But then once they start practicing it, then only they'll get the benefit.
Very true. Very true.
So if we say follow the yoga practice regularly and then breathing exercise regularly, it will benefit you. But if we are putting our kids directly into that system, it's like, giving them practical exposure right from the beginning.
Correct. And teacher need not be a PhD in Indian knowledge systems to introduce these. That is one trap that many of the people get into. People feel that they should know everything about Indian knowledge system before they put in even a small effort to teach children. But practically we have seen, if you have just that interest and the will, you can definitely learn this and then teach the children. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to teach is for 45 minutes for small children and a simple concept. So if that we are able to learn even the previous day or spend a week learning that, bringing out lesson plans, activities also we have listed here. So all that is needed is the willingness of the educator, parent, or whoever it is, right? So that way. And different cities. So yes, we will discuss in the end how all this can be taken forward. And so again, Annamaya Kosha is to do with the physical structures, looking at the diet, the food, and the daily routine, achara, ahara, and all that. The Pranamaya Kosha is to do with the prana, with the the activities. Manomaya Kosha is to do with the cognitive functions or the senses, for that matter, together with the mind. The Vijnanamaya Kosha is typically to do with cognitive development, which is attention, focus, memory, decision making. In fact, we have a very interesting activity where we encourage the children to make decisions on their own. Okay, just simple self-reliance. So we would give them a picture and say, choose whatever color you want and you color it there. Give them a few choices and say, you choose whatever you want. So that way the child exhibits some, what you can say, agency in taking up things. So even those kind of things we have kept in mind by designing this. And it is all purely coming from our own simple experience of having raised children and also interacting with children of that age group. Not any complicated logic, but simply based on the Shastras and the way a grandmother would teach the children. That is, you can look at it that way. Because one of the key aspects of indigenous education is to harness the power or harness the capabilities and knowledge that has come through the old people in the system, right? Because they are like embodiments of that knowledge and creating mechanisms for that knowledge to trickle down into the system. So just as a grandmother would observe whether the child is able to hear properly, whether the child is eating properly, whether the child is jumping properly, this will be a grandmotherly approach to the whole thing, if you have to put it in very simple and naive terms. Okay. So when we look at the Sadvidya pedagogy, in the next session, we will be going into the actual content based on the koshas. Okay, this is to set the context for many people who are new to this framework. The Sadvidya pedagogy, if you see, James Hartsell, a neuroscientist, coined the term the Sanskrit effect. It was a widely circulated document. He reports that Indian tradition holds rigorously memorizing and reciting mantras enhances memory and thinking. He found the grey matter in Vedic Pandits to be denser, the cortex thicker than in controls, and the hippocampus regions to be enhanced. So that way, their verbal intelligence, their memory, everything was superlative. When he did a study with 25 Veda Panditas, he himself has done a lot of chanting. So this Sadvidya pedagogy blends all these things. So it has physical activities, it has Kantapata, it has cognitive sessions, it has storytelling, art and craft, social skills, and unstructured learning. All these are part of this. Physical activities, age-appropriate yogic practices, exercises, integrative activities. Then you have Kantapata, which is including chanting, memorization of simple verses. There are like hundreds of simple chants that we have included in this particular manual. Cognitive sessions focuses on numeracy and literacy so that the child is not left out in any way from the regular content also. Okay, so that way they can easily blend and join a regular school if at all that is looked at. Okay, many people would prefer that, going to a regular school. So that way, finishing this preschool content and going to a regular school will not be a problem. Okay, just that only thing is that we don't teach coding here. On the lighter side, we don't teach coding as part of this curriculum. Storytelling. So you have value-based stories and various stories that illustrate certain principles. Hundreds of stories have been included here in a very short form so that the teacher can build up, can write dialogues for it, can write role plays for that. But the fundamental stories and the values they illustrate are presented in this manual. Art and craft, social skills, like self-reliance, doing seva, keeping the place clean, shaucha, all that are integrated. And unstructured learning, giving space for spending time with oneself. Otherwise, what happens, as a child, you have to constantly engage them. Keeping on giving them like a genie, you will have to give them activities. So if there is some quiet time, they also learn how to utilize the time on their own without having to keeping on giving them some interventions. Okay, and self-directed activities. So this is the pedagogical approach. You have things for every kosha. For the Annamaya kosha, you have physical activities. For the Pranamaya Kosha, you have Kantapata, even for the cognitive time, Vijnanamaya Kosha. For the emotional quotient, you have bhajans, you have poems, you have stories for the emotional. For the spiritual quotient, you have meditation, you have simple happiness-based skills. And for the the social skills that also bring interpersonal relationship and all. Okay, so every kosha is addressed using these various pedagogical tools. You can add more as you see fit and according to your own creative understanding. So this is a note to the educator, which I will skip for now. And how to do this, use this book, go through the activities, plan as to what activities you'll be covering, log the activities that you have done, customize it creatively, use an activity multiple times. This is a very important thing. There will be 200 and odd activities. It means that you will be able to do one activity only once. Okay, that is how it is given. But you should not stop there. If it is a chanting, do it multiple times. If you feel something is important, even do it every day. Just spend the 2 minutes doing that. First day it will take half an hour. Next day it will take just 15 minutes. Once it is mastered, it will just take 3 minutes of doing that particular thing, right? So use an activity multiple times and integrate the activity across subjects. Okay, for example, a story activity can be used to teach vocabulary, can be used to teach Indian knowledge system, and also promote critical thinking. So, for example, in certain things, we would have written, narrate the story of Hanuman here. Then it means that particular concept is being used to explain about, say, Vayu, say the Panchabhuta. So we would be writing Vayu Putra Hanuman, go to the Hanuman story. So at that time, just flip to the Hanuman page and narrate the story for them. So that way it will be an Indian knowledge system component. It will be a story component. You can also teach language using that particular story. By planning, logging, customizing, and reusing activities, teachers can create a more engaging and effective learning experience for their students using the Sadvidya Teacher's Handbook. As a supplement to this curriculum, children's books will have similar content. So we are planning that we'll be more than happy to take your support in creating the workbooks for this particular content, which RTG and I will explain to you towards the end of this session. So what I will do is here, I will just bring out a suggestive timetable because this part will help you to participate in the group activities in the upcoming session. With this, I will stop this session. Okay. So the NCF itself has suggestions on the timetable. So for age 3, a typical timetable, it can end at 1 o'clock. From 9:30, it can start. So the NCF does not give, because it's a secular content, it does not give any Guru Vandana or anything, chanting for that matter. It probably talks about rhymes and songs. But here we can adapt it to our dharmic content. So the 9:30 to 10:15, you have Guru Vandana, yoga, and some kind of rearrangement and story. 10:15 to 10:30, there is a small break, maybe for water. 10:30 to 11, you have chanting and singing. 11 to 11:45, you have one concept time. That is also broken down into 2 segments based on how well they are able to pay attention. 11:45 to 12, you have break. 12 to 12:45, you have art, craft, Indian knowledge systems, and play. 12:45 to 1, you have Shramdan and silence. Okay, this is one suggestive timetable. There is also another suggestion that the NCF has given, which we have adapted slightly. So it's the same thing, just that from 1:15 to 2, we have integrated Yoga Nidra. And we also have given an audio to integrate Yoga Nidra. Okay, you can just play the audio and the teachers, children, everybody can engage in Yoga Nidra. It will be a highly restful time. And the same thing is integrated. So this entire manual, if you see, what we will be seeing is in each of these slots, if it is Guru Vandana, what can you teach? If it is chanting and singing, what can you teach? 200 for 200 days, the content has been provided for each of these slots for each of the years 3, 4, and 5. In concept time, what all can be taught? How can it be taught? Art, craft, and how can it be taught? Shramdan and silence, how to inculcate that. So all this is part of the discussions that we are going to have. So course plan, we have scheduled the courses for an approximate 200 designated working days, excluding special days and holidays. Slot 1 is Vandana, Yoga, and Stories. So this is the first slot and how to take it forward. I will leave it to you to read it during this break. Okay, this particular page, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4. And there are numerous activities. And when you log it, what you need to do is that activity 5 from 14.1. So you can write 14.1.5 in the logbook. Once you complete that activity, or before completing that activity for the day, just maintain a logbook so that you have a track of you are able to trace what all you have covered. Even art, craft, 150 sessions are available. Activities are available as part of this manual. So this is what the logbook looks like. You have a date, activity number, and some observations. We have provided many pages. You can, if you print it out, you can just cover the entire year using this logbook. Some part of it will look like spoon feeding. Some parts of it will look very open-ended. So there is a good blend of both of these, so that the inherent creative ability of the teacher and educator and parent, there is scope for it to flower as well. So I will stop here for now. And Aarti ji, if you have anything to share at the moment, you can share.
So right now we will come back at 10 o'clock. From 10 to 12:30, we will have our next session. Because many of you are curious on knowing, and that's probably really working on your head a lot, and it will help for you to be settled. Maybe we will take 15 minutes to talk about that as to what we are planning at the end. Instead of the end, we will take it up, and then we will continue with the session. So even as we are going through the curriculum, you can start thinking in that angle. So we will start off with that. So all of you who are wondering how we can take this forward. Is that okay, Matrushree?
Yes, definitely, Ji. I'll be happy to.
Yeah. Okay, so we will do it that way. We'll come back at 10 and we will continue our session. That's it. Thank you.
We'll just conclude with an invocation. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So we'll meet at 10, and I would suggest you download the manual. Just probably, skim read it, speed read it, so that there's some prep for the next session.